Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
I'm Hilary Dickman, a parent of two and Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Colorado College.
Hi, I'm Lisa, a clinical psychologist and a college counselor and a co-author of the book, The Calm College Method. I have one daughter who's graduated from college, one daughter who's about to go to college, and a son who's about to go to high school.
I'm Mark Stucker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you, as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. Good morning, friends. It is 5:45 on Wednesday, May 20th, and I'm coming to you from St. Michael's, Maryland, and I'm excited to meet with you guys as always. Now, if you've never been to St. Michael's, I highly recommend it. Breathtaking views, stunning, and you're right on the water, and it's just amazing how beautiful this country is. So here, I'm at a conference here with 32 of us, admissions professionals, counseling professionals, and it's over in 6 hours, and then I fly out at 6:30 p.m. to head back to the ATL. But when I travel, I got to crank out podcasts from the road. And sometimes people feel sorry for me, but, one surprise to me was when I started podcasting is I love editing. I can't believe it, but I love editing. Something about the creativity of putting the whole thing together just fires up my creative juices. So don't feel sorry for me that I'm editing podcasts at all hours of the day, because I'm like a kid in a candy store. Now, one thing I don't like recording interviews from hotel rooms. You just never know what that's going to look like. That's an adventure that I can do without. All right, friends, I have two brief announcements today. So episode 650, we're doing a Grinding My Gears episode. So collective therapy. So something in the world of college or college admissions that's just like nails on a chalkboard to you, irking you. Go to speakpipe.com/YCBK. Leave a message, and I'll join at least one of our co-hosts, and we'll have some commentary on your thoughts. Not sure if we'll play 3 of these, 6 of these. We'll see how many come in. But we're going to do that in episode 650, which is only 4 weeks away. Friends, I'm stoked because we're going to do a YCBK gathering on Tuesday, October 6th, 7 to 8:45 p.m., which is a Tuesday, in Minneapolis. We got a maximum capacity of 75, and a lot of counselors who are listeners to this podcast are going to be at NACAC, which is our national conference. I mean, this conference gets over 6,000 attendees. So between counselors who are listeners and locals in the greater Minneapolis-St. Paul area from Minnesota, this is going to fill up fast. Just last night, 2 counselors reached out to me because I mentioned this last week's episode, and they were like rearranging their travel plans so they could attend this event before going to the conference. So I've submitted the form. I'm not sure if it's up yet, but if it's not up yet, it should be up by the end of the day. And just go to yourcollegebounkid.com, go to the events page, look for the Minneapolis event. Susan will be there. Andy Strickler will be there. I'm going to reach out to several other interviewees who are going to be in for the conference and tell them to come on over. We'll have some light refreshments. We'll mingle. We'll do some Q&A. These events are a lot of fun. The last time we did one at NACAC was NACAC Los Angeles, late September 2024. That was also a blast. All right, friends, let's transition to hear a question from a listener that Hilary joins me to answer.
And now it's time for a question from one of our listeners.
All right, Hilary, this is a exciting question. I love questions that we've never had before. And I think it's a question a lot of people are going to be interested in. So let me play the question, and you're the person to answer this.
Hi, Mark, and the rest of this YCBK team. Thanks for all you do. My son is a sophomore, soon to be rising junior at a top 10 public school in the state of Ohio. This year, we tried to get an early start on college items, and I reached out to his counselor asking for the high school profile that's sent out to colleges. The counselor told me that that was not available to students, parents, or anyone in the community, and that it would only be sent through Naviance to the schools that each student applies for. When I asked about why, I was told that the report included some things like the score distributions and GPA that they would not share with students or the parents, and that in order to view the document, I would need to submit a request through the school's superintendent and the school board to do so. So my question is, one, why would a school do this? And two, is the information on that document important enough that it's worth the ire of some administrative people in the school that my son eventually needs letters of recommendation and support from in his college journey? Thank you for your time. The reason that the administration gave that they don't share the profile that they send to colleges was that they want to keep the focus on each student's individual growth and accomplishments rather than comparisons. So they don't share things like GPA or test score distributions, or really anything else. I mean, the information that the only thing they would share was the AP classes that are available, which obviously we know, and I guess some sort of general ACT and SAT information, but nothing in detail. So anyway, just for more background for when you answer it, and hey, I appreciate everything you do. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for calling, Dad from Ohio. I appreciate it, and I really appreciate this question. Yeah, I would actually support your counselors in this situation. I know the school that your son goes to. I know what kind of pressure those students are under, and I've seen it really go wrong in communities where students are able to compare themselves against each other. I think it becomes unhealthy. I could imagine it becoming unhealthy in your community because of the ways that students sort of take that information and run with it, and that parents take that information and run with it. I guess what I would say is that when you're at a top 10 school in any state, and certainly yours, you've got great counseling, and that you don't need to be concerned about what's on your school profile. When I tell parents to ask for the school profile, usually it's because they're at a school where perhaps the counseling isn't as strong and they want to know what gaps they need to fill in the application, in like the additional information section, or if the counselor at that school could use support and could use a few parents to help like rewrite or redesign the profile because they don't have the kind of support that they need or the time and the resources at the school. That is not the kind of school that your kiddo is in. And I admire actually sort of the chutzpah that it takes to stand up to parents in a kind of high pressure community, and to say we're doing what is healthiest for your students. And so we're trying to sort of turn down the heat a little bit on these students so that they can continue to do their best work. So I would let it go if I were you, because I think you've got your kids in a great school with great counseling.
Yeah, I agree 100% about letting it go. In fact, I knew that it might be a while before we aired this question. So I just replied to the dad and told him I would let it go. Just for like I said, we're going to answer your question, but just so you can have an answer right now, I would let it go. The other thing I want to mention here this can be something that's hard for parents to understand, so I'll try my best to unpack it. But when you are in a director of college counseling role, which I have done, you have to do certain things. You have to think about the individual, but you also have to think about the collective good. And there's times that means you make certain decisions that are in the collective good that can be frustrating to people because they don't feel like they're in the individual good. And that's how they land. And I'm going to give a couple examples that are other than this, but just to show that it's kind of a transferable principle that applies to other things besides this. Like, this is one of the times when it applies, right? Like, if they were to divulge everything, it could not necessarily be healthy for school culture. So they're doing something that's in the collective good, but it might not feel in your individual best interest if you want to have more knowledge. But I'll give you two other examples. Something that happens routinely when I'm working with students, if they're in independent schools, I see this a lot in the DC area and in the New York market. These are very competitive schools where people are really aspiring to, there's like a very short list of schools that are generally seen as acceptable in the community. It's usually under 50, and it can be even narrower than that, depending on the school. So they know that very high percentage of students are going to all be applying to the same school. I mean, there's some schools that get over 100 applicants in the senior class to the most competitive schools in this country. And there's some schools where more than half the class applies to like an Ivy League school and Ivy peers. And so what some of the schools do in the New York and the DC market and other places too, but I've seen it most in New York and DC, is they limit the number of applications that they will allow you to apply to. And a lot of times it's either 10 or 12. Now, I will tell you this, there are sometimes off the record where they make exceptions for people based on certain circumstances that make sense. But that's generally a policy. And it can be very frustrating to families. I remember Susan and I talking about this a lot at Westtown, when we were working together. And I always respected Susan's position, which was, I don't know if that would stand up to a lawsuit if somebody ever challenged us. That was sort of her perspective, which I respected. But I know what high schools are trying to do. And they're like, it's similar to like, Julie and I were talking about a student that I worked with that this year that, got in one of the most competitive schools in the country through single choice early action. And they try really hard when that happens to pull the rest of your apps. And, the student can have tons of curiosity. Well, I want to see where else I get in. And so I worked pretty hard to try to make that happen. It didn't completely happen. And the student does have the right if you're not sure that where you want to go, or in this case, they didn't need to compare money, but if you need to compare money or, I don't want to get too much down that path. But the point is, high school can be aware of the fact that if we get 110 applications to Brown, they're only taking so many kids. So if we let our students apply to 25 schools or 18 schools, a bunch of kids are going to cannibalize each other and only so many kids can go. So it's kind of in the collective wisdom that we limit it. We still are very confident we can give you a balanced list. You have top tier counseling you're getting from us. So that's one example. Another example, which probably mirrors this one even closer, and I'll draw on Julia again here. When Julia was at Milton, they never let their families see the scattergrams that are so popular in SCORE and Naviance. Why? Invariably, a family's going to see, hey, how come this kid got in with a 1290 and a 3.3?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a story there.
The
right?
kid was an athlete,
Right.
or the kid's parent was a donor, but none of that
Correct.
shows up in the scattergram. And so then these students just get angry about it, and you feel like you weren't taken care of by your counselors when you don't get in because you've got a higher GPA or higher test scores, or you feel frustrated that there was something wrong with your application. And it's just, there's so much going on behind the scenes. And I admire schools that are willing to step out and say, nope, we're going to make this as like anonymous as we can so that students aren't sort of fighting, with each other, not literally fighting with each other, but just talking about who deserved to get in and who didn't and why.
That's exactly what happens. If I'm sitting here with my 1410 and I see that a kid got in with the 12.9 with the 3.3, and I'm sitting here with the 3.6 and a 14.10, you just gave me all kinds of hope that I've got a great shot. But hopefully you've heard us talk enough about institutional priorities, and especially some, like not all institutional priorities carry the same amount of weight. Some carry more weight than others. If it's a really big institutional priority that the school college feels can help it in significant ways, they'll go way outside their profile. Like the standard becomes, can the student do the work oftentimes?
Yes.
And maybe if it's really a huge institutional priority, it may be, we think they can do the work. We'll give them all the support and build a whole support plan and hope it works and cross our fingers. But that $20 million donation that we think they're likely to give is going to be transformational in the life of our school. Or this athlete could take our program to a whole different level, and not only will that help the school spirit around the place, but all the publicity that we're going to get out of that, that's going to drive way more applicants. Like, it's just in our best interest.
Yeah.
And
sometimes those decisions have to go all the way up to the VP for enrollment to be signed off on, because you're going so far outside of profile. And sometimes they don't, because there's something else in the application that you see that the student isn't hooked, but they're incredibly reflective. They are spoken about as the favorite student in the senior class by their counselor and by two teachers. And, there might be a lot of other personal qualities, non-cognitive qualities that are standing out, even though the student's test scores and GPA seem to fall outside of the academic profile. And you just can't see that from a scattergram or from knowing, what's on the school profile in terms of the GPA distribution or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And I have a very conflicted relationship with scattergrams, because on the one hand, there are times where a lot can be gleaned from them, especially if there's a large number of applicants and you can see, like I've seen them where like there's literally nobody that I can see that got in under this GPA or under this test score. And that's certainly, and if it's a large number, that's certainly noteworthy.
Friends, as you know, I'm here in Maryland at a conference with a lot of deans and VP of enrollments. And literally just last night, we were leaving a restaurant. We went out together as a group and walking in the parking lot. And this exact topic came up. And I'm having this conversation with a senior person about one of the former schools, that she worked at. And it's one of those, let's just say, blue buds in the world of college admissions. And so she says to me, kids under X GPA never got in that school. And she specifically said, if you were looking at a scattergram, you would literally see no kids under X GPA. So in cases like these, scattergrams can be incredibly helpful. Now, I find that when it's this cut and dry, it's almost always a public school. And one of the reasons for that is the single biggest outlier that you see are recruited athletes. And there's just a small percentage of students that are going to be recruited athletes at a bigger public school. And also, every time I say this, I want to mention something. A lot of times recruited athletes have higher GPAs than regular students. These students are incredibly disciplined and focused and determined individuals. Sometimes I feel like we give recruited athletes a really bad rap because we talk about them almost like, those lesser than students. And many times the exact opposite is the case.
But the problem is, I find, is they can make people think they know more than they do.
Mm-hmm.
I literally had this conversation with a delightful mom that I'm working with just this week. And, we were talking about adding another school to the list was one of the 11 schools when I did my thing on the most selective schools in the East and the South. in the West and the Midwest maybe 6 weeks ago. It's on that list of 11. And then, and the mom had mentioned, oh, I can't wait to go look at the scattergram, and I had to push back and say, you got to be really, really careful with those, especially at a school like this, which is incredibly holistic in how they evaluate. And so, so that's another tip, listeners. Just be careful that you don't intuit too many things from scattergrams, especially when you don't see sizable numbers of students. And I'll say this, when you do see a scattergram and you see some acceptances that look way out of profile, you should work off the assumption that that person is probably hooked. You can almost bet that they were hooked. And then you have to ask yourself, are you hooked? And
don't look at the outliers. Look at the big blob of color right in the middle.
Yes.
If you fall into that, maybe it's a good option for you. But don't look at the outliers and think, well, I'm going to be that outlier. They're called outliers because they don't apply to very many people.
Correct. And Susan and I were having a really good conversation the other day, and she's like, are you being recruited? You should know if you're being recruited.
Yes.
Most of the hooked people are being recruited. Mm-hmm. And you tend to know when you're being recruited because they do special things for people who are being recruited. And recruitment can go outside of athletics. You can be recruited for other things. But are you being recruited? Okay, if you're being recruited and you're being recruited, okay, then maybe, you can be out. Because people can make the other mistake too, which is, I don't see my profile doesn't look like it's as strong as this. And sometimes when you're dealing with a hooked applicant, you have to sometimes let them know, no, trust me, students like you are competitive here. Like, no guarantees. I don't want you applying assuming you're getting in, but I often say this to students. Here's what I can tell you from my experience. This school is going to want your application. They are going to want your application. So don't talk yourself out of it because you think you have no chance. Like, you can't look at standard metrics because you're bringing something unique to their community that they are someone that they'll go to profile for. When schools list their 25th to 75th percentile, there's a quarter of the class under that. Mm-hmm. And that quarter of the class is generally bringing something to the community that's rare and highly desirable, and they feel will strengthen their school. You're in that category. So, I know this is hard. It must be hard for people listening to this. It's fascinating. Sometimes people say college admissions is so fascinating, but it is complex. And especially for people that like black and white, I can see how this stuff would drive people crazy.
I mean, it is complex. And on the back end, it's not that complex. Sure. I think the hard part is that you can't know exactly what the institutional priorities are of a college or exactly the way that they read a file. And it's different from every school to the next school. And so it's not as complex once you get back here on the other side, but it is certainly when you're the applicant.
Yeah. Well, what I like to explain to people, every decision is intentional.
Yep.
Every decision is intentional. Nothing's willy-nilly, haphazard. No one's like drawing straws or something. But to the average applicant, it feels random.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, great question. Love the question. Appreciate
I would just say, Dad from Ohio, like, take heart. You've got a great counseling team at your school, and you have nothing to worry about. So I would just move along with the application process.
Yeah, and listeners, I'll say a few things. So this dad did share with us the name of the school. I didn't play it on the air, so you might be wondering, how does Hilary know? So one, he did share it.
Let me just tell you, I know because I lived in Cincinnati for long enough and I taught in the schools there, and I didn't need him to tell me what school he was talking about. And then he confirmed it when he left a second voicemail.
Sure. Yeah. So I know I played 2 voicemails for you guys, but I did edit out the name of the school. And when Hilary saw it, she's like, I knew it was that school. So she also brings some unique Cincinnati background back to the table when she says you're in good hands. So thank you.
Friends, let's hear the last part of Lisa's interview with Suzanne Hanna, helping young women successfully transition to college.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, it's time for the final part of Lisa's interview with Suzanne Hanna. And the final part, really almost this whole segment, Suzanne and Lisa focus on the pros and cons of sorority life. It's a conversation that they started last week. They continue it this week, and it's a good 3/4 of this part of the interview. And then Suzanne addresses the concern that some girls have that if they don't join a sorority, they won't have any friends. Suzanne gives her advice to all the college coaches that are listening when it comes to working with young women. And then Suzanne and Lisa talk about, is there a way to find out which sororities are the most aggressive in sorority recruitment? Listen and enjoy.
Why do we do it? Why is it kind of glorified? Like I mean, I understand like women should band together and we should do philanthropy. And I mean, I think
Yeah,
that they're, go girl power, but this sounds like it kind of perverts that into something that hurts girls.
I think it certainly can. I think it can. And I think and I think when you look back at like sorority chapters and why they were created, it was so women would have a voice and so women could come together. And so like the history of these chapters is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Hmm.
But I think the recruitment beast that has been created from like the whole Bama Rush thing, I think it's taken off and it's perverted it.
Hmm.
I think.
Hmm.
I think it's kind of made it it's given it a bad taste for a lot of girls, and then some it's become an absolute obsession. And honestly, with the girls that are obsessed with it, like they're thirsty for it. Like they will do anything to get in certain houses, and when they don't get it, they're just crushed and miserable, and they just like some people just go home. And I don't know. I think I've really thought a lot about like how to. There's no way to fight it, but I feel like the whole recruitment thing has to be a bubble that bursts. Like how much more how much bigger can this get? Like how much more choreographed can these dances be? Like what more can they do? And I have seen a trend of some of like the bigger SEC schools pulling back, and the houses like the top houses, they're like, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. Like we're kind of going back to meeting girls and making sure we connect with them, and we want to connect with these girls, and this is the kind of chapter we want. And a lot of the chapters see the social media stuff and the girls that are influencers that go through Rush, and they don't want them because the stigma that's attached with being an influencer. So there are all these different ways to look at it. And so some houses or chapters I think are pulling back and like kind of going back to their roots. Like this is who we are and what we stand for. And I'm all in for that. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's just take the veil off and let these be organizations that are philanthropy focused and that are friendship focused and service focused. And that's how we make good friends and change the world and try to make this place better by coming together. Yeah. So I think there are places where it's, and then some places it's really laid back. Like some places Rush is just not a big deal. And girls have fun. They're not like crying and dying every day. They have fun. So it's school dependent. And I think parents and girls really, if they want to be Greek, they really need to research that before they commit to schools, because I think it can be a heartbreaking process.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe parents don't realize how the process is maybe a bit more aggressive than it was when they went through it too.
Yes,
So they don't realize the emotional risks maybe that girls are going to take on when they go through some of these very competitive rush processes.
you're right. It's a big emotional risk. Yes, you said that perfectly. It is. And I mean, yeah, because I was in a sorority, and my mom wasn't. I wasn't a legacy. I didn't know anything, and nobody told you what to wear. You just showed up, did your thing, and you picked three houses, and I don't know, and then you just get in one. And it was so it wasn't that it was like easy, but it wasn't like, because I would have been like, I'm not doing this if it had been easy, because I'm very rebellious, and I would have been like, I'm not following the crowd. I'm not doing this, right? Like, but so and so now you've got people my age, our age, and it's like this is not how it is. This is what these girls go through is so different. But it's become a very in some places a very parent driven thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some schools like parents come to bid day.
Hmm. Well, and parents, yeah, they're buying the outfits. They're paying for the sorority rush consultants. I mean, I don't think like, the girls walk around with several $1,000s just that they decide they're going to blow on it. So there's parental pressure and support. And I mean, I can't imagine like being a 18-year-old girl and you do all the things and you follow all the things that your rush consultant tells you, and you do all the things, and then, for whatever reason, because just like college admissions, it's not fair,
It's not.
right?
Exactly.
And so it just, for some people, it's not going to work out. And then how do you retool? Like, what do you think your college experience is going to be? You
Correct.
know?
It's a whole identity crisis because they think this is going to happen for them. And then all of a sudden it's like, this is not the school I thought it was. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I wish it's a big challenge. And it's one that I continue to try to like research and think about and just figure out ways to help girls get through it. Yeah. And without being a rush consultant, that is not my ministry, girl. I would never. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they would hire me. Like, run away. But that the thing that like my daughter brings up when she thinks about sororities, that she is afraid that if she doesn't get into sorority, she won't have any friends.
Yeah.
So how do you address that? Because I'm sure you work with girls who are in sororities, girls who are not in sororities. What do you actually see about college campuses? Is that really a valid fear?
It is. It's a valid fear. But once the girls do the math, they realize it's not. And like the first step in my post recruitment guide, if you've been disappointed, is I have like this equation, and it's you look at the total enrollment, undergrad enrollment, and then look at the Greek enrollment, and then there's a little piece you do. This is an English major talking about math, so like I'd have to like look at the formula.
Well,
Not that this is even hard, but it is for me. And then you determine like from the number of Greek, like what would be the number of girls in a sorority. And then you convert it to percentages. Like this percent of your entire undergrad campus is Greek. And some places it is, they think it's the whole world, and it's like 17%. So I'm like, you have this much of your campus that is not Greek, they're out there having fun. And so I think that just looking at the numbers is very helpful at the beginning, because you feel like you're alone and you feel like that's the only thing, but it's not. Now there are some schools that are very Greek. There are some schools that are, and I think it's good to look before you go, just to help temper your expectations. And most schools, the majority of people are not.
yeah.
So it's a loud thing. It's very publicized and it's in your face. So it feels to the girls like it's everybody. And all that matters is how they feel. And if they feel left out, that it's horrible for them. It breaks my heart. And so it's kind of helping them understand the reality of like, you don't have to feel good yet, but here are the numbers. And here's like, if you look at it objectively, and then at some point your brain and your heart will catch up with each other, and they'll understand that it's okay. But until they get to that point, like it's a lot of just love and listening when they get disappointed with it, and let them get the feelings out. I tell moms, like, let them ugly cry, like snot bubbles and all. Let them just get it out. You can't fix this. You just got to listen, because it's hard. It kills moms, which kills me. Like, it's so sad, because it's hard to have your baby. First of all, they just left. You have to parent this person your whole life, and then they just go. And we're like, where'd you go? Like, I hate when my first kid left. I was like, you just left me. And then you let them go, and then they get their hearts broken. It's tough.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that like if you do become part of a sorority, I mean, that's great. You have a set of friends, but then you're kind of like not as able to make friends with other people who are outside of the sorority. So there's like an opportunity cost there. I don't think kids always realize.
Yeah,
Now I point this out to my daughter, and well, you can imagine what I said earlier. There's a lot of eye rolling and huffing.
I know. It's so fun.
But it's true. It's
Yeah.
just math, people.
Well, it is. And I think that it is. I think you do, you're putting yourself in a compartment by doing that.
Hmm.
And if that's the compartment you want, cool. Right.
Hmm.
But some people are in sororities and then involved in many other things on campus. Like, you can be the girl that does that plus the other stuff. Like, you don't have to just join that and that's all you do. You know, I think it's a mindset. And I think that in high school, their kids are pushed and pushed to like diversify and join this and do that. And what is your passion project and all that stuff. And I think they get to college and they just kind of like regress to like, I don't know, who am I? What do I do? What do I join? Because there's no pressure to do it. And then they realized a lot of the things they were involved in high school, they didn't really care about anyway. They just did it for the college application. So
Yes.
yeah, so it's another can of worms we shall open.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about the problems and issues involved in the college admissions process on this podcast. And that brings me to a question I wanted to ask you is that we have a lot of college consultants who actually listen to the podcast. And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering what advice you have for us in terms of how we can help girls navigate these issues. I mean, we're making lists of schools, we're presenting schools, we're helping them make these decisions. What do we need to know and how can we be the most help?
Yeah, and hats off to you people that do this because it is like it is chasing a constantly moving target. And there's so much that's under fire right now in higher education. And there's so much it's just scary. And so yeah, y'all are warriors. But I think that it reminds me of the like kind of the drought of support I see with post recruitment, that I see with any kind of disappointment. I feel like kids don't get what they want or they get rejected, and then they don't know how to manage those feelings, and they don't know how to manage rejection because the college admissions beast has turned into a lot of rejection. I mean,
Yes.
just a few short years ago, it was making the decision because you got into 7 places. And now the kids just don't, they're broken. I've talked to lots of girls that just, and what else can they do? I mean, they're so high achieving. They like start nonprofits. Like, what else can you do? These kids are precious and they work so hard and then they deal with rejection. And I think I would love for that to be some kind of like, there's to be like some kind of like post admissions recovery of some sort.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Like detox.
yes, like how to pick up the pieces and like once you come down
hmm
from like all of the
hmm
cortisol, you just kind of like the reality
hmm
hits, and I think that would be a great thing. It's just kind of like post care.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of how we as college counselors can get like a feel for like how aggressive a rush process might be at different schools? That might, I mean, it would be great to have a list, right? And be like, all right, you want to go to such and such school, you know, and you want to join a sorority, but you're also a crier. And, so looking at
And
the math here,
be
I'm not sure
scared to
about
have
that
a
for you.
boy on your Instagram account.
Yeah.
Ooh, I know, like I saw one reel where it's like, make sure they're in your Instagram that you edit it and it's just friends, but not too many friends. And then don't have bikini pictures and watch the boy pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that database would be fascinating to see. But I think all the answers are on social media. I think that could be made just from researching and asking, or I mean, kids will just tell you, and where it's cut through and where it's not. And yeah, that would be good to know. That would.
Yeah, so if we like somehow hired kids to follow sororities on social media and like rate them and report back, that would be how we could get the real information about what's
Absolutely.
happening there.
Because
Okay.
sororities have like social media committees that are out looking at
Right.
girls and rating them. So like it's just kind of the opposite. Like, okay,
Yeah. And
so
just,
which one? Yeah, that's great. There you go.
I can do that too.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
feel like we've got that on this side. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right about the profiles because I will look at the profiles of the girls who are, going to be at my daughter's college, and they are literally all like the same kind of pictures. And I'm always like, oh, this one has a picture that's, different. Like you should be friends with her, you know?
It's carefully curated. Carefully
Yeah.
curated.
Yeah. Well, this has been so great. I really appreciate you giving us all your expertise. In a way, I think, as all good interviews, we end with more questions than
Yes,
answers about like what to do as a society about all this. But I think the bottom line is college girls have it tough.
they
That is a
do.
hard transition and it is like a tough world that they're entering. And so
It is. And they
we
can
have to,
100% do it. They've got it in them. It's just, I think, starting with honesty and an understanding that being comfortable, being uncomfortable is part of it. And making friends, like I was talking to a client a few weeks ago and I was like, honey, in order to hang out with people, you have to hang out with people. And she was like, oh, and I was like, that's like the simplest thing I've ever said, but it stuck. And I was like, you have to put yourself out there. You have to hang out with people. Like you have to make it happen. Making friends it is a skill. They're not just going to open your dorm room and come plop on your bed and be like, hey, what's up? Let's be besties. It's not going to happen. And I think and just being honest about that kind of thing. Like, there's some things you're going to have to work for, and it might be a little uncomfortable while you do it, but you are 100% capable of doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So honesty plus support while they're doing it
Yes.
equals success, it sounds like.
Yes. I get to do that. It's so fun. It's like the best thing
That's
ever.
great.
Yeah, these girls are precious.
I'm sure there's a lot of moms right now who want to know how you can help their girls. Where do they find you?
My website is SuzanneHannaCoaching.com. And I also have an Instagram page where I post a lot of reels. It's like a bunch of free content. And follow me at Suzanne Hanna Coaching. And I also have I have the Smart Girl Study System. I have a homesickness guide and a post-sorority recruitment guide that parents can get for their kids, just as extra layers of support. Yeah. And I actually have it all. I forgot. I have it all bundled now for a graduation present. If you want to just like get your daughter everything, be like, here. Yeah. It's discounted bundle. It's on my website. Yeah. I was like,
don't
ooh.
say I didn't help you.
There you go. I know. Look at me like plugging the bundle. I was like, wait, I have a bundle. It's
awesome.
So funny because being in public education for 25 years, like I just did everything for free. And I'm like, oh.
Right. I could actually make money off of my expertise. Weird. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Of course. You're delightful. It's so wonderful talking to you.
Oh, well, likewise.
I know.
All right, friends, let's hear the final part of my conversation with Kevin Newton about going overseas for grad school.
And now it's time for our college spotlight of the week.
I don't mean to reduce education to being strictly transactional, right? Like,
Right.
you go to college and get a job, like there's tremendous value for you being shaped as a human being and, having your perspective broadened. But that's also a little bit of a luxury for people at a certain SES, socioeconomic status class, that they can think that way.
Right.
For most people, there does need to be some connection to earning a livelihood, or at least there is going to be in their mind. So, but I don't mean to make it sound like education is simply transactional, because I really don't believe that, right? That's what I believe.
There is something to be said if you're going to make an investment in time and resources that it's that whatever you're getting paid off with, whether it's future higher earning potentials or a great experience. I'm a huge fan of gap years. Gap years do nothing to increase your earning potential, but they can be some of the most rewarding experiences of your life.
I agree.
I think that it's important to look at this as holistically as possible. And, again, for someone who just needs a master's degree, we'll go back to the teaching thing for a second. If you already have your teaching certification and you're looking at a state where you get paid $10,000, $15,000 a year more from a bachelor's degree to a master's degree, and suddenly, who cares if it's a master's degree you got in China and were heavily subsidized? Who cares? But if you're looking at it as someone who, wants to specialize in, say, I don't know, European studies, then maybe you don't go to the university in South Africa or South Korea or Japan that just offered you a good scholarship.
Kev, do you think families need to be cognizant of what is the perception of the country you're going to in the United States? Just you know what I mean? Like just I'm talking about, like, there's countries that we're more amicably, aligned with, and then there's some that are a little bit more adversarial, and there's some that, you know what I mean? Obviously, this stuff can change, and there's a lot is happening right now. Canada thought they were the United States' best friend for 100 years until the breakup. So, I mean, things can change. I get it, but and even that's probably a bad example, because I think a lot of employers would be very favorably disposed to Canada. But is that something you think somebody needs to be cognizant of? Like, gee, there are places in the world where, there's just more, maybe the word is leeriness. I don't know if that's the word that popped into my mind, right? Question mark, question mark, question mark. If somebody came from that country versus ones that, you know, have tended to have very, very positive, supportive, you know, amiable and amicable relations wise. Is that something that you think people even need to think about?
I think that's a decision for each individual student, given, you know, I mean, I poke fun that, you know, if you were looking to apply to Pyongyang University of Science and Technology, I'm not your person. I couldn't help you. And, you know, that is that far extreme that, you know, I think not
thinking of places like Iran, you know,
I think it does kind of start.
Maybe Russia. I don't know.
You know, it's really become more with the students I've been working with, a factor of what about your personal safety? You know, so for that reason, Russia's not being recommended as much as they were some years ago. And
you're talking about your safety at the school. Like, what is this? Are you talking about the physical safety of the surrounding environment at the school? Because we've talked about that before in undergraduate, and there's some places you're just not comfortable recommending for physical safety reasons. Same thing applying to grad school.
Right. You know, and it's definitely challenging times, you know, because it's one of those things that, you know, we're looking at a number of different political movements active around the world that may or may not align with everyone's personal profile. And I'm trying to paint that in as broad strokes as possible.
Sure.
You know.
No, I'm thinking of this through lots of lenses, right? Like there's the one lens you've mentioned. I have an affinity for this place and I might want to go live there. And if I can have a pathway to visa and then citizenship and residency, I'm all in. Or I have family connections, or I went over there and it was an amazing experience undergrad. And then there's also the person that kind of knows they want to live here. I would put like Lauren in that category, Dave's daughter. Like she wanted to go get that international experience and see the world, explore the world, but ultimately she wants to come back here. And so there's kind of that person. And then for that person, you know, you wonder, okay, I think you brought a good point up. Alumni network's really important. You know, I would think places for whom even people that are used to hiring international or students that went to international universities, it's not like, whoa, I've never seen anybody that's come from that place before. Although maybe that's an advantage. I don't know. Maybe it's an advantage. Maybe it puts a question mark on you. I don't know. I'm just asking the questions.
Well, I think that, you know,
I'm not trying to be Tucker over here, but
you're good. You're good.
I'm just asking the questions.
I think that, you know, everyone's going to have those different things that matter to them. And, you know, the one that, you know, I kind of go back to, because if there's one thing I like more than books, it's food. You know, the second biggest bookshelf in my wife's house is where her cookbooks are segregated from my cookbooks, because never the two shall meet. You know, she's still mad at me that I snuck an Ethiopian cookbook in there, and, you know, I've been trying things, and, you know, Kate's all about exotic cuisines, but
I love Ethiopian
Injera
food.
is a step too far for her. You know,
we went out for Ethiopian on New Year's Eve and had the time of our lives. So I've kind of have a new place to take people to that come our way now. It's pretty close to the airport. It's good.
Oh, we had Greek food, which for New Year's, which is Kate's favorite Greek restaurant on the planet. But I digress. So I've had students who, you know, actually, great example. I had a student a couple of years ago who's interested in doing a PhD, and he fixated on the fact, and I love this, that in Finland, when they give you a PhD, your kind of graduation dress includes a top hat, because you are, you know, you have made it. You are a professional at that point, and a sword, because you were supposed to guard knowledge. And he loved the idea of getting to wear a top hat and a sword at graduation. And they let you keep the sword. So, you know, but then he started looking into what Finnish food was like. And he was just like, you know what? This is not for me. I cannot do this for 3 or 4 years just to get a sword at the end of it. So it does kind of matter. You know, I've had students who, you know, they're like, I know I need to get a master's degree. I want to be close to the beach, or I want to be close to the mountains, or I really love I feel we can talk about this because this is grad school, that they like exploring different wines or different beers or different, pastas or different whatever. Or they may have an aversion to it. Where I think if you have a gluten allergy, there are certain countries that we tend to not look at so much because this is one of those lifestyle issues. And I feel that, going back to the politics thing, it's that turned up a little bit. And, from my side of the desk, we just kind of embrace whatever the student, their limitations are. I think there are a few absolute no-goes, like no one is going to do their study abroad in Pyongyang. I had a student ask this past year because he's very interested in East Asian studies, and I don't know who vetoed first, him or me or his mother. But it was quite a violent veto, and just you have lost your mind. This is not cute.
So there's some places off limits. But I know we're getting close to winding down. Why don't you share a few kind of gems? Like this program is a gem, and you don't need to be a 3.8 student to get in.
It's a great question. I think depending on what you want to do, I really like, and it's just because I was on the phone with a student right before we started, the business programs at places like IE or Bocconi, which I know is shocking because I love IE and Bocconi for so many different things, but their master's degrees are great. But also looking at those other European cities that aren't London for business degrees. You can find a lot of these in Germany that are taught fully in English, which is not something we see in a lot of German universities. And you can go to a place like the Technical University of Munich, which is one of the best universities in the world, and get a qualification in English and have access to that alumni network, which is phenomenal. There are places you can do this in Paris. You've got the National University of Singapore. There's a Parisian school, I'm blanking on it, that does with the National University of Singapore and NYU, I believe they call it the Triad MBA program. So it's obviously, that's a bit more if you've got a 3.9 or so, but it's really, I think people who are sitting there at like a 3.6 or a 3.5 and they're like, well, I tried my best. Go ahead and look at the places like Edinburgh or St. Andrews. Depending on the course of study, look at a place like UCL. You're going to be pleasantly surprised at and if you're sitting there with a 2.9 and a weird interest in the non-Western world, look at SOAS. There's an anthropology of food master's degree where a friend of mine, this was, many years ago, did her master's thesis on Thai curries and convinced the university to pay for her to go on vacation for 6 weeks in Thailand and eat her way through the country. So,
why do I think you're vicariously living through her?
I'm telling you, man, she had life figured out. She knew what she was going to do, and those are goals right there. But also, you'll find that there are a lot more specific programs. My own journey through this, I wanted to do Islamic and comparative law. I would have had to take a course on that, maybe tops, at an American university, and it would have been under Middle Eastern studies. They're very specific with the number of master's degrees and what those can take. And, you can slot in different modules for different things. So just take a look, dive right in. And, it's phenomenal how many are out there.
Kev, this has been great. I think a lot of people would consider, with parental support, grad school just because their students a little older too, and they might feel more comfortable with a 22, 23, 24-year-old doing something versus an 18-year-old. So I think this has been awesome. Is there anything in closing that you want to share you haven't shared?
I think if there's interest in it, we should probably talk about PhDs and funding and all of that good stuff, because it's definitely an evolving topic here in the U.S.
Listen, Kev, I appreciate you, my friend. This has been great. And Kev's about to go out and enjoy himself at a book signing or something here. And I want to make sure you have plenty of time to get there in case you hit some of that Dallas traffic.
It's bound to happen. So we just live with that acceptance in life.
It wasn't as bad when I was back there in this trip. 75 was just a straight out parking lot when I was there in the 90s. It was a parking lot.
We live in East Dallas, and we were coming back from back east and got on 635 to get to our neighborhood. And I apologize for anyone who doesn't know Dallas traffic, but I said famous last words, 635 is moving quickly. This is nice. And we came around the corner and slammed on the brakes.
Well, the interesting thing about traffic is everybody thinks their traffic's the worst, right? So Atlanta, they'll say it's the worst. But then you have Beltway traffic, which is brutal. And then you have Los Angeles traffic, which is brutal. You have Chicago traffic, it's kind of, and then you get stuck on the Schuylkill in Philly. It's just kind of interesting.
I feel it's like different kinds of unpleasantly hot chili peppers. The worst traffic
Nothing
jam
like a food illustration.
The worst traffic jam I've ever been in was DC to Richmond, sitting on 95 for 6 hours. So yeah.
Well, listen, you have a good time. Thanks for coming on here and sharing your knowledge and your intel. And if anybody has any questions for Kevin, you can reach him at kevin@aneducationabroad.com. kevin@aneducationabroad.com. Thanks, Kev.
My pleasure, Mark. Take care.
Yeah. Be well.
Friends, on Monday's episode, you're going to hear an entire episode on innovations that are happening in this space, some of the creative things that colleges are doing, challenges colleges are facing. I'm going to do a multi-part series of key takeaways from this, which is really one of the better professional development experiences I've had. And I'm a conference junkie. Now, the name of this conference is called the No Name Conference, and that's intentional. It's been around for more than 35 years now. So don't look for me to mention any names because I can't and I won't. And if I did, I'd never be invited back. But I will let you know some of the new things that are happening in this world, in this space, and some of the challenges colleges are facing. It's going to be a multi-part series. I think you're going to like it. And then Andy's going to join me for a part 2 of our interview where we reflect back and look at 2026, the year of college admissions. And friends, I can't leave St. Michael's, Maryland without saying this. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's what you do when you get there, and it's what you do when you get out of there. That is what will determine your career success, and quite honestly, your life success. See you on Monday, friends.
And that's our show. Big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stalionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.